I'm Sora Luxon, and this is Lesson 1, What is Magic? So everyone will have their own view on this, and a depolarized magician, depolarization, that's a term I'll have to cover in another lesson. Anyway, a magus, sage, master, frater, sor, priest, priestess, high priest, witch, warlock, bruja, alchemist, whatever you want to label the wise who quietly walk among us. They're always the first to admit that all of those differing, dissenting, and often contradictory views on magic and what that word means is true. Or at the very least, that those are all facets of a larger truth. It's okay to admit this, that people can be correct while also being incorrect, or that we're all coming at interpretation from our own limited perspectives, and that discussion of any subject requires the expectation and acceptance of nuanced context. It's also okay to begin doubting that almost automatic automaton type reaction your subconscious has towards the word magic, of its being somehow bad or from some evil realm of activity, which invariably seems to connect itself to a devil type figure in people's minds. Occult magic isn't about the devil or devils. So, yes, it's all right to begin breaking those mental chains and begin moving past the many widely established but ridiculous idea forms that we've all been force-fed somewhere along the way. The common religious assertion that magic is somehow evil or bad is just simply nonsensical. The many practicing Christian occult magic practitioners find it extremely ironic, or they would if they spent energy judging others, which they really don't, because that's part of magical evolution, but that's another podcast subject for me to do at a later date. Opinion and perception is one of the wondrous and fascinating parts of being within an existent reality and recognizing that everyone is manifesting their own framework of that reality within a shared whole is one of the wondrous and fascinating parts of learning to work with magic itself. But for the purposes of our dialogue, a simple definition for the word magic in reference to occultism will have to be established here. So there are two generally accepted spellings of magic within the traditional occult communities. Each has its own meaning. Neither of them refer to illusionist conjurer stage magic. That is misdirection, escapology, the perceptive artistry of cold reading. I'm doing invisible air quotations, bunny ears up in the air that you can't see when I say cold reading, quote unquote, mind reading. Those things have their place, but that is the work of a prestidigitator, and most trained occultists wouldn't ever make the mistake of calling them magicians. The first magic, MAGIC spelling, usually refers to what most people within the conformity of conditioned speculations would automatically presume the word magic refers to. Basically, anything to do with common misinterpretations of paganism, Wicca, Satanism, Luciferianism, voodoo, hoodoo, shamanistic practices, possibly things to do with druids or monks, anything to do with a candle maybe. Most religions and cultures get lumped in here by people who aren't part of whichever religion they're attempting to undermine or culture that they're attempting to undermine or discredit. That's a story as old as time. But I digress. Basically, anything to do with fairy dust, full moons, love spells, broomsticks, teenage girls levitating, the occasional blonde actress twitching her nose to get her way, a water demon growing legs in order to marry royalty. Magick with a C is going to cover a gauntlet of what tend to be underinformed musings, assumptions, sometimes very entertaining stories, and sometimes downright biases that people who think they don't practice actual occultism tend to have in place. The hilarious thing is those people do actually practice occultism constantly and unknowingly, or rather, the occult practices on them. But I'll get back to that. Magick with a K tagged on the end, Magick, is the second spelling, and it's the one in use for discussing what I'll be going into on this podcast. It tends to be the more definitive and discrete term that's used by people in the know to refer to occult magic. It was coined by Aleister Crowley to describe the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. I think I got that quote exactly correct if I remembered it right. In other words, high occultic applicable magics. So what does that mean exactly? Does it refer to the famous example of Crowley supposedly being able to make a man stumble by sheer force of intention? Sure, it can refer to that. Does it refer to sigil sealing or Wiccan practices of spell casting? Yes. Does it refer to when you want a glass of water, so you will yourself to stand up, go to the kitchen, and a glass is then made to appear in your hand by your act of reaching to take it off of a shelf? Yes, that is also magic by will. These things seem different, but they're actually the same thing. They begin at the same point. A decision is made, and intention is set, and then it completes an energetic circuit. It's just that the majority of people are extremely adept at the forms of will they've practiced most, and far less experienced at the forms of will that they haven't practiced. That just makes sense, right? You're going to get best at what you practice the most of. And most people don't practice focusing on high-level energetic transference and manipulation, say, as much as they practice pouring themselves a glass of water on a daily basis, because we're mammals and we drink water every day. So there are also other hurdles involved in more advanced magics, like the one referred to in the Crowley example, that make them more challenging, at least at first, to obtain. Regardless, magic as the definition of causing change to occur by will is the definition as simply and humbly as I can give of what magic, Magick, is, and what I'll be going into depth about with the lessons on this channel that your synchronicity led you to today. That's another great term for us to go over in a different lesson. Occult magic is a real and informed source of power, and it's an amazingly useful tool, especially to the practitioner who can consciously wield it. But it's also something that's all around us all the time, which we're all participating in. It doesn't make a person crazy to recognize that energy, mind, matter, potentials, and a person's capability to work actively with those things is going to be based on learned skills that are gained by competent and focused instruction, the way any other skill would be. Also, occult magic is not the domain of the crazies. Far from it. It isn't a hoax. It isn't charlatanism. It isn't a quick fix or a scam ideology that you've been taught before. And it isn't a way to get you investing your time or money in sometimes well meaning, but more often than not useless, self help and guru esque dogmatic meet and greets. That is not the magic I'll be discussing. Real magic takes real practice and effort, it requires sacrifice. And mental manifestation is a part of what occultism operates with, but it's not all of what occultism is. Magic is very real. It isn't any more illusory than you are, and great things are possible with it. It's all right to ignore the widely held belief of it being the domain of the irrational and begin to ask what it really is for yourself. And now we have a great place to start with what the word magic means when I use it. Until next time.